Hello. Anybody there? I can see your comments. Wonderful. Colleen and Annie and Sherry and Carol and Doris and Elizabeth and Vivica and Linda. How you guys doing? I just want to have one person confirm. Oh, Elizabeth, you shared with 5 groups before I even asked you to share. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Hopefully this will be the best broadcast of the year. Thanks, Colleen, for your comment. It's weird. The comments are appearing right on the screen, right where I'm seeing them. Hi, Paula. Good morning. Hi, Meredith. So you can see and hear me. Hi, Rachel. Hi, Jane. All right, let's get started. And yes, if you like, you can share this in real time simply by using the share button, and it goes out to your pages or your groups. So I really appreciate that. And you can also share it afterwards because I always try to put it on YouTube within 24 hours. Thank you, Sharon. Hi, Brandy. Hi, Peggy. So let's get started. Just in case this is the first time you're ever seeing me or hearing me, my name is Chef AJ, and welcome to episode 56 of Weight Loss Wednesday, my weekly broadcast that takes place live almost every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific time on my Facebook page, which is Chef AJ, and then I try to get it on YouTube within 24 hours after that. So Weight Loss Wednesday is where I answer your questions about healthy, permanent, and sustainable weight loss. I am the creator of the Ultimate Weight Loss Program and the author of the soon-to-be-released Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss, as well as a book called Unprocessed, and the host of a television show on Foodie TV called Healthy Living with Chef AJ. And I've been following a plant-based diet for over 40 years now. Now, I'm telling you that even though many of you probably know that, because what I thought I would do with this episode, because it's the last broadcast of the year, is do somewhat of a recap and answer a lot of the most frequently asked questions, but answer one question that I'm not sure I ever really answered in its entirety. I know I have in bits and pieces. I realize that people are finding these broadcasts in different ways, and not everyone watches them sequentially from 1 to 56. This could be the very first time you're seeing me or hearing me. And I know that because last week on the broadcast, which by the way, we apologize. The technology just didn't work. We couldn't finish the broadcast. And this is only the third time it's happened, though, in 56 attempts. So that's not too bad. Somebody actually posted, they said, this is my first time finding you. What is the Ultimate Weight Loss Program? So I thought what I would do is just give a little bit of history of who I am, not the long history, because you can get my book Unprocessed or my other book for that, but a little bit about who I am and what the Ultimate Weight Loss Program is and how it came to be, because we get a lot of questions about that. And then hopefully this will be the broadcast that if you have questions or you have friends or colleagues with questions, you can just share that and they'll have all their questions answered. So before I start, I first want to thank Kenny and Eden for helping me this past year with these broadcasts. I'm doing it myself today, which means I won't be able to answer your questions live, but I would really appreciate it if in general you emailed the questions in advance, and you can do that simply by going to my website, which is eatunprocessed.com, and that goes to my husband, and then he sends them to me. And it really helps if we have the questions written out for several reasons. One, because we can maybe give a little bit of thought to it, but also because you have to understand that this is a live broadcast and the feed goes really, really fast. These broadcasts are done using an iPhone, and I have the smallest iPhone, which is the 6. And so it's really, really tiny, which means I can't read it, which is why Kenny and Eden often help me with these, because they have younger eyes and also they can see it better. And also you could be typing several sentences, but only a few words actually appear. So in order to get your question answered fully and its entirety, it would help me out greatly if you would be so kind as to submit it through my website, eatunprocessed.com. You don't have to be on my mailing list to do that, but while you're there, if you're not, just click the little box if you want to be on my mailing list so you find out about other cool stuff that's going on, maybe where I'm speaking, things like that. I do my best after the broadcast to review it in its entirety and try to answer the questions, but I prefer answering them on the broadcast because then everybody that's watching can see them. So I hope you understand I'm not trying to be mean by not answering questions, but there are so many and they go so quickly, and it would help me out if you could submit them through the website. So thanks for that, and thanks for your understanding. So, okay, who am I? So as I said, I'm Chef AJ. And why am I here to talk about this? Well, I had no idea that this was going to be a weekly broadcast. And I always say there's really nothing more for me to say because I feel like a broken record. I feel like I say the same thing every single week. And I'm not upset about that. It's just that I feel like I don't want to be boring and I don't want to stay too long at the party like the last season of Seinfeld. But again, I realize that some people, this might be the first time they're seeing me. And also I understand that, like Doug Lisle often says, repetition is the mother of skill. And I know that for myself, one of the ways I learned what I learned was listening to lectures by Dr. Doug Lisle and Dr. Alan Goldhammer over and over and over again. So I don't mind doing it as long as you're not getting sick of me. So let's just say how this started. So I am the creator of a program called the Ultimate Weight Loss Program. And we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about what that is, because there's a difference between the Ultimate Weight Loss Program and the diet style I recommend. There's not a difference. It's just that you can do the dietary regimen that I recommend without signing up for my program. So many people do. You know, I've been traveling around the United States, Canada, and Mexico for the last 7 years. And I meet people all the time that tell me, like, I never bought your book. I never signed up your program. I just did what you said on Weight Loss Wednesday, and I've lost 60 pounds. I've reversed my diabetes. One person even said they reversed stage 4 kidney disease, which they say is irreversible. So you don't need to join the program to do the dietary style I recommend. We'll talk a little bit more in this broadcast why there is a program and why some people might benefit from it. But as far as just doing the diet, you don't have to pay me. You can just do it. I mean, it's not my diet. It's God's diet. It's nature's diet. It's the diet that Dr. Alan Goldhammer's been eating himself personally for 40 years, feeding his children and serving to the over 30,000 patients that have gone to True North. So there's no secret there, but we have put this information in a comprehensive program that help people, especially people that need support. But as I said, when I started doing this about a year ago, I was very new to technology. I had literally just gotten my iPhone and I had never done Facebook Live before. And when I pushed the button to go live, I didn't realize that I wasn't on the private secret group page of the Ultimate Weight Loss Program. I was on the page you are on now, which is my professional page, Chef AJ, which, by the way, I don't have a personal page, so please don't take offense if I don't friend you. I don't have any friends, not even my husband. So I was doing the broadcast, I thought, to the Ultimate Weight Loss participants, but instead it went to everybody. And I was shocked that there was well over 200 people watching and that people were saying very nice comments and that many more people were watching in the replays and asked me to do it as a weekly broadcast. And so that's how Weight Loss Wednesday was created. And you could probably go to episode 1 and see. And I think I said I didn't realize that I was broadcasting to everybody at that time. So that's how it started. At least that's how the broadcast started. So how did I get started in this? Well, I don't want to tell you my whole story and bore you. Not that it's boring, but some of you already know because you've either read my book Unprocessed or you've seen a video that I've done. And I really recommend, if you haven't watched that video, or if you've watched it and it's been a long time and maybe you're struggling right now with the holidays, it's 43 minutes long. You don't really need to watch it. You could just listen to it. It's called From Fat Vegan to Skinny Bitch. I gave it at the McDougall Advanced Study Weekend a couple of years ago at the request of Dr. John McDougall, one of my heroes and mentors. I didn't want to give that talk. I wanted to talk about my favorite subject, which is calorie density. But he said, leave that to the doctors, tell your story. And I guess I was either brave or stupid because it turned out to be probably the best presentation I ever gave. And it seemed to help a lot of people. Because if you're seeing me now, you say, well, what does she know? She's a skinny bitch. What could she possibly know about being overweight or struggling with food? Well, if you watch that YouTube, you will know that for over 50 years, I struggled with my weight because of my weight. And I even attempted suicide as a teenager because of my struggles with food. So I was born in 1960. I'm almost 60 years old, well, actually almost 58 years old. And by the way, today is my husband Charles's birthday. So happy birthday, Charles. We certainly couldn't do any of this without him. And my mother was morbidly obese. Now, you probably know that statistically, if one of your parents is overweight or obese, you have a much greater chance to become overweight or obese. My mother was, and I became fat at the age of 5. Now, today, 1 out of every 3 children under the age of 18 is overweight or obese. But in 1960, that wasn't the case. There was generally only 1 fat kid in every grade of about 40 students. And all through high school, the fat kid was me. Now it's pretty common to be overweight or obese. As a matter of fact, more than 3/4 of Americans are overweight and half of those are obese. The average female in this country is about 5'4" tall and weighs about 166 pounds. And so since only 1 out of every 4 people is normal weight or thin, it's pretty common to be overweight now. But it wasn't the case growing up. And so it was really hard. As a matter of fact, not being asked to my senior prom, many other things. I wasn't teased or bullied to the degree that some children are or were, because I was very, very smart. I was always this teacher's pet and the smartest kid in my class, and I was very, very funny, and I could deflect a lot of that teasing by being popular. But that's not to say that it did not traumatize me or scar me. So I do know what it's like being the fat kid and being the fat teenager and being the fat girl in the 20s and the 30s. And a lot of people say, well, you don't know how hard it is because you were never that fat. Well, I'm sorry, because when I was 11 years old, I wasn't even 5 feet tall and I weighed 160 pounds. And that's obese. So yeah, I do know. Maybe I don't know today what it's like, because the highest I ever weighed at my height of 5'5" or 5'6" tall was 200 pounds, but that's bad enough. How fat you are doesn't determine how much you suffer, especially if you live in LA, where every pound is like 10 pounds somewhere else if you're overweight, meaning, it's a very different lifestyle here. I mean, look at what I'm wearing today. It's warm today. It's much different when you live in a climate where you can just put on a coat and nobody sees you, but we have the entertainment industry here. So I think it's a little bit different sometimes where you live, but needless to say, I know what it's like to be overweight and obese, and I know what it's like to walk in your shoes if you suffer with either of those conditions. But what I didn't know until a few years ago was that there's such a thing called food addiction, more accurately called processed food addiction or refined food addiction, that apparently I had suffered from my whole life through no fault of my own. It's a biogenetic disease. I was born with it, just like some people are born with other conditions. And once I discovered this condition about 6 years ago, I was actually very excited, because now that I knew that it was a thing and that it wasn't that I was crazy or weak-willed or lacked willpower, I could actually get treatment for it, and I did. And part of that treatment included going to the True North Health Center in Santa Rosa, California, where I learned pretty much everything that I tried to teach you guys between Dr. Alan Goldhammer, Dr. Doug Lyle, and Dr. John McDougall. All the learning took place in Santa Rosa. But when I first went for help for my treatment for food addiction, there really wasn't anywhere in the plant-based or vegan world to go. Now, that's not to say that some of the plant-based doctors don't believe in food addiction. Some do, some don't. And some of the ones I've talked to said, well, okay, I guess it's a thing, but that's, that's not where their focus is. I mean, you don't go to, you don't ask your plumber to do your taxes. And so if any of the wonderful plant-based doctors or programs are concentrating on a specific thing, like maybe overcoming autoimmune disease or reversing heart disease, it's not to say they don't care about food addiction or don't believe in it, but that's just not where their expertise or focus is. And so I went outside the plant-based world to see if I could get treatment. Well, the problem is that I couldn't find anybody outside the plant-based world that believed that you could overcome food addiction with a plant-based diet. Now, I'm always reaching my tentacles out, if you will, to some of these people. I interview them as guests, even though on my other show, Healthy Living or Healthy Living Live, even though I may not agree with them 100%, because I think they have some very good, solid information on food addiction. Many of them are PhDs. I recently interviewed a medical doctor, because I like their information, and I think it's really important information. What I don't necessarily like is their treatment, because up until now, I haven't found anybody in the non-plant-based world that believed that you could overcome food addiction on a strictly plant-based diet. And so I wasn't about to give up being an ethical vegan for, at that time, it would have been 30, 40 years, just to overcome food addiction. I knew there had to be another way, and I believe there is, and that way is with the dietary style we recommend in the Ultimate Weight Loss Program. So what I've tried to do with the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, and realize that the operative word is program. So there's many different, I was a speech communications major, by the way, Cal State Northridge. And so I love words, because a lot of words have more than one meaning. And one of the meanings of the word program is a plan or a system under which action may be taken towards a goal. And that's my favorite definition, because the reason it's a program is because we realize that not everybody is going to be able to take this information, which I give freely every week, and I have hundreds of other cooking YouTubes. Not everybody's going to be able to take this information, assimilate it, and do it without the support of what we like to call a tribe. People seem to do better when they have a certain degree of accountability and, more importantly, support. And especially because they're doing something that is so vastly different than probably anyone they know, at least anyone in their current circle of friends or family, that they often feel, I don't want to say, maybe sometimes embarrassed, sometimes foolish. And it really helps if you can find a group of like-minded people. That's why there's a saying, find your tribe and love them hard. And one of the best things, no, not one of the best things, the best thing about the Ultimate Weight Loss Program is the group of people that we've created in the community. And if you don't believe me, then come to the live Ultimate Weight Loss Conference Labor Day weekend next year in Las Vegas and meet these extraordinary people, because it will blow your mind. And next year we have a new keynote speaker, Dr. Neil Barnard, that we've added to the mix of myself, John Pierre, I can't think of the names of my two favorite people, Dr. Alan Goldhammer and Dr. Doug Lai. I'm a little nervous doing it myself because it's a little bit harder. So Kenny did say he would come for moral support, but I said, no, I just want to do this. So anyway, the reason for the program is because if people could do it on their own, they would have, because this information is not secret. I did not reinvent the wheel. All I did was take everything I learned from Dr. McDougall, Dr. Lyle, Dr. Goldhammer, and assimilate it into a way that I feel people could, not that people couldn't understand it from them, but I think I simplified it, because what I've done is I've taken the subject, my favorite subject of calorie density, which is what I teach, which is the foundation of the Ultimate Weight Loss Program. And I married that with everything I learned about the disease of refined food addiction from the people in the non-vegan world that were writing about it, doing research and teaching about it. So that's what I've done. To my knowledge, the Ultimate Weight Loss Program is the only program that addresses food addiction in general, but food addiction in a 100% vegan way. And so that's what I do. And that's what the Ultimate Weight Loss Program is. But what a lot of people don't know, because I'm generally here by myself, I've had a few guest hosts recently, is that even though I'm the creator of the program, I don't run the program myself. The program is run with my friend and dear colleague, John Pierre, who is a celebrity fitness and nutritional guru who's been plant-based almost as long as I have, I believe over 33 years. He's trained so many of the celebrities in Los Angeles and all kinds of people, and his specialty is nutrition and geriatrics. And so he brought a lot of things to the program, which I don't always have time to share with you on a weekly basis, because these are more his area of expertise, some of his tips and tricks of things he teaches the people, not just in the realm of fitness, but in the realm of mindfulness and cravings and things like that. I mean, it's not that it's a secret that I can't tell you about green powders and essential oils, but the truth is that's not my area of expertise. So unless he's here with me, I get questions on them. That's what I leave for him, or especially the fitness questions and even the nutrition questions too, because neither of us are doctors, but he knows a heck of a lot more about nutrition. And so the purpose of having the support group, not only for the tribe to support each other, is that not that I'm some big celebrity, but I've gotten to the point where I really I'm not even able to answer my own email. I don't have an assistant. I get at least 200 emails a day. I'm always behind. Right now, I think I'm at the lowest I've been at about 1,000. And I do make every effort to answer every email personally, but it gets really hard. And so by having this private support group, I give priority to the group, to my own email, over my own email. So when people want to ask me questions, instead of waiting for Weight Loss Wednesday, which I don't always see on the feed, they can tag me in the private group or John Pierre. And so I read every single post, which is basically my job. And so when people say, well, I can get all this information for free, of course you can. Please, I give it for free. Everyone gives it for free. But what I charge for is my time. It's just like I would imagine most of you don't go to work all day without getting paid. That is my job, is to just answer these questions all day. I'm not even able to do private consults anymore. So that is how I connect with the people, is through the private group. Now, eventually we're going to be moving over to a subscription board so that things can be compartmentalized in a more efficient manner, because Facebook, even though it's a secret and private group, it goes very, very fast. So I often miss posts. So that's the thing. So the Ultimate Weight Loss Program is a program where when you pay for it, you get access 24 hours a day to myself and John Pierre, but you also get content. And that's what people don't understand. I remember very early on, I believe the program is $149 now, but 4 years ago, it was only $99. And it came in 2 box sets of DVDs and CDs. It's about 12 hours of content, I believe. It's the filming of a live Ultimate Weight Loss seminar and some bonus material and a 21-day recipe guide. And then you get the calorie density magnet and the bracelet. And I remember this girl, like she was bashing me on the McDougall boards, where they finally got me out. They just were so mean to me on that board for some reason, as if I don't love Dr. McDougall. He even said he's a personal friend of mine, but they don't like me there. So they say a lot of bad things about me there, like that I'm a hack and I'm trying to make his program more difficult. That's not it at all. We'll get into that. But she said, I spent $99 for this program and all I got was a magnet and a bracelet. Well, we can tell if you open your email, by the way. And she never opened her email. So she never even saw the content. And by the way, we do have a free not free, it's a money back guarantee, no questions asked 30 days if you find out the program isn't right for you. But that's the thing. But I'm not here to try to sell you the program. I'm trying to here to explain how it evolved and what it is. So let's see. I have a few pages of notes here. Okay, so one of the things is the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, or the dietary style recommended on the Ultimate Weight Loss Program. It's an abstinence-based program. And so when you say something is abstinence-based, or like a drug treatment or an alcohol treatment program, when you say it's abstinence-based, it's based on the notion that addiction is a disease. And I do believe that food addiction is a disease, a biogenetic disease. You can believe anything you want, and that's fine, because the truth is if you follow the dietary style, you will still lose weight whether you believe you're a food addict or not. That's the beauty of it, because let me tell you that we have different types of people that join the Ultimate Weight Loss Program. We have people that are card-carrying, hardcore, proud to be food addicts like myself, that acknowledge that they suffer from food addiction. We have people that completely deny that food addiction is real. And then we have people that are there just strictly to lose weight because they're overweight and they don't even know where they stand on food addiction. We have people in the group that are professionals, health professionals like doctors and nurses that often you may know, but they don't use their name, and they're there just to learn how they can help their patients with this. And then we have a subset of people that are really one of my favorite types of groups of people, because I'd like to reach out to more of them. There are people like Sharon McRae, who is a health coach and a PCRM cooking instructor in Columbia, Maryland, and Leslie Stein in Nashville, who does the wonderful Facebook channel Lifting with Leslie, who have never been overweight, who have never suffered from food addiction, but happen to eat this way anyway. And they want a tribe of like-minded people to connect with, to share recipes and things like that. So there's not really one type of person that comes to the Ultimate Weight Loss Program. So what's really interesting is that the dietary style, and I'm going to get into that, so don't worry, that I recommend for weight loss, which is based on calorie density. I didn't invent it. The food did, God did, however you want to believe the food got here. Dr. Barbara Rolls, who I've interviewed, has done the most research on the field of calorie density than anyone. But calorie density works regardless of whether you feel you're a food addict or not, if you follow the principles and employ them in your life. It just so happens that all the foods that people have a problem with, the foods that are addictive, if you believe in addiction, which are the animal products, the dairy products, the refined carbohydrates like the sugar, the flour, and the oil. Well, these are all the foods that are also high in calorie density. So the only thing I really contributed to the conversation in the field of calorie density, which my clients tell me was very helpful to them because I tend to simplify things, is I created the red line. And I'm sitting down now, otherwise I'd go get you the magnet to show you. We sell those. It's a calorie density magnet. There have been other charts, but they've read from up to down. And realistically, unless you don't live in the United States, people live, that's how our eyes go. We read from left to right. So I created a calorie density magnet going from the most calorie dilute foods to the most calorically dense, most calorically dilute being vegetables, non-starchy vegetables, most calorically dense being oil. Difference is 100 calories per pound to 4,000 calories a pound. And right after legumes at 600 calories a pound, I drew a thick vertical line. And that came to be because before there was PowerPoint, or at least before I learned PowerPoint, I used to do every new client I would do in person, I would write it out on a whiteboard, my calorie density lecture. And I gave this lecture to this new client, and after an hour, she scratched her head and said, now what is it I'm supposed to eat again? And I got really frustrated, and I took the red Sharpie and I drew a line right after legumes. And I said, just eat to the left of the red line. Well, as luck would have it, research corroborates this. I think it's called the World Cancer Report, that is, if we keep our calorie density to 567 calories per pound or less, most people can eat a style known as ad libitum as much as they want, whenever they want, as often as they want, until comfortably full, and not only not gain weight. It's pretty much impossible to gain weight at a calorie density that low, but most people will lose weight till they're very, very close to their ideal weight while eating the healthiest foods on the planet. the really cool thing about calorie density is that not only does it work beautifully on weight loss, and it's probably the only thing that really works that is sustainable where you're eating large enough quantities of food, is that the most calorically dilute foods are also the most nutrient dense foods. So it's really a win-win situation. And so a lot of people say UWL actually stands for the ultimate way of life, or the ultimate warranty for life, because it really is a health program and not just a weight loss program. And thank you for sharing these broadcasts. I appreciate a couple of you commenting. You can do that right now, or you can do it afterwards as well. So that's the really cool thing about it. And the other cool thing about it is the foods that the people really struggle with, whether they're addictive or not to them, whether they believe in food addiction, but the foods that they generally struggle with are the animal products, usually the dairy, which is 1,600 calories a pound, the refined sugars and flours and alcohols. Sugar is about 1,800 calories a pound, flour about 1,500 calories a pound, bread the same, pasta, things like that. Or they struggle with the high-fat plant foods. Now, we're going to talk about the high-fat plant foods separately because I'm not against them. I don't think they're addictive the same way sugar or flour is. But the other thing I bring to the table, I believe, is an experience, having worked with probably over 2,000 people now, that not everybody can eat the high-fat plant foods and be slender. I'm going to be releasing a couple of videos I did with geneticist Dr. Roseanne Alviera, where she talks about the research she did with her identical twin sister, who's genetically the same, but weighs 50 pounds more. And they're doing the research where one was eating a low fat diet, one was eating a higher fat diet and a low carb diet. And I'll let her talk about that. But one of the things I learned from her is that if you have been overweight and lost weight, you're actually genetically different than somebody that's never been overweight. And if you're a female, you're genetically different than a slender, non-food addicted medical doctor telling you that you got to eat nuts every day. Now, nuts are not unhealthy. And if you can limit it to, I meant to bring I hope Charles gets home so I could just go over there and get my stuff. But here's the thing. So they're not unhealthy. There's certainly health benefits to them. But a lot of people that struggle with food addiction and weight can't moderate the use of the delicious high-fat plant foods like the nuts, the seeds, the peanut butter, the tahini, even the avocado, which are of a higher caloric density. They're to the right of the red line. They're 750 calories per pound to about 3,200 calories per pound. And so a lot of people have trouble with these. And so what I try to explain to people that it's not your fault if you can't moderate the use of these foods. You know, when I first went to True North 6 years ago, Dr. Goldhammer didn't believe that people couldn't just eat an ounce of nuts a day, because he can. He had the self-control, the willpower, put his cashews in little Ziploc bags and take one out every day. He didn't have a problem with that. But now he believes that there are those of us that really can't. You know how they say in AA, one drink, one drunk? Well, one nut, 1 pound. That's what I say. Even Brazil nuts, which I don't like, and I attempted eating because they said you need one every day for selenium. One Brazil nut is enough to get my fat receptor so excited that next thing you know, I'm eating a pound of pistachios. Now, if you can eat nuts or anything, if you can eat anything and be happy with your weight, then knock yourself out. But we're learning that there's a lot of people that can't. And unfortunately, a lot of the doctors and dietitians that are telling you you must eat these every day, they've never been overweight. They've never struggled with food addiction or emotional eating. And so they are genetically different than perhaps you are if you are struggling with these things and if you are overweight. Now, what I like is how Dr. Goldhammer says there's really not one food we have to eat every day or even at all. There's always something else we can eat. So again, I'm not telling you not to eat fat, but I'm telling you if nuts or any food is a problem for you, and this is what we address more fully, we get to go more in depth in the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, or if it's a trigger food for you, which means it causes you to exponentially overeat, that might be something you want to minimize or avoid. And what I tell people is you don't have to say you're doing this for the rest of your life. As a matter of fact, Dr. Goldhammer's told me I only have to do it for 50 years, but you might want to just do an experiment where you go 21 days without these substances and see how you feel. Because if you can't get through one day without them, at least for you, there might be some addictive like property or compulsion for you to eat them. And so this is things we delve a little bit more deeper in the Ultimate Weight Loss Program. I do not ever want to criticize or bash any of my colleagues because all the plant-based people are all doing wonderful things because of them, somebody else is finding out about a plant-based diet. But where food addiction is concerned, I don't really see them necessarily having the whole piece of the puzzle because if somebody is a food addict or struggling with a particular food, you have to understand that somebody's psychological health is just important to that individual as their physical health. And again, this is what I love about Dr. Carrie Saunders and Dr. Linda Carney, who I've interviewed, but that interview didn't, the Skype didn't work, is that you have to balance the fact that, let's say nuts, yes, make you live longer. I'm not so convinced that they do, because some of the research I look at, which is all, by the way, funded by the nut industry, usually is people that are eating a standard American diet, not people eating a whole food plant-based diet free of sugar, oil, flour, alcohol, and salt. But the point is even if it does make somebody live, I think when I interviewed Dr. Lyle, like something like 66 days longer, the stress of having to eat these foods that you have difficulty moderate will also shorten your life. So you have to take that into consideration. The other thing is we recommend, and Dr. Furman has even said that seeds are healthier than nuts. If you're eating nuts because you want those beneficial omega-3 fatty acids, you can get them just by having about a tablespoon of flaxseed or chia seeds every single day, sprinkled on your oatmeal if you eat it, put on your salad if you do smoothies, put in there. Or, even, believe it or not, there are people that still binge on seeds, even flax seeds. I know that sounds crazy, but there are people that do. So for them, if they're worried, they can take a vegan DHA supplement. The truth is I have not added a single, at least not knowingly, I have not added a single drop of added fat to my diet since January 2nd, 2012. Before that, I had my omega-3 fatty acids level checked while I was actually eating nuts every day. But I wasn't eating a lot of vegetables like I am now, and I was actually low. And I just had it tested this year, and I was actually not only normal, but I was at the highest level of normal you could be. So again, I'm not telling you not to eat nuts. What I'm telling you is to be willing to run an experiment on foods that are troublesome or possibly trigger foods for you, and see if you can go 21 days without them and see if it makes a difference, especially if you're trying to lose weight. Nuts are just very, very high in caloric density. And the truth is if you have fat on your body anywhere, if you go without added fat for 21 days, you are not going to become fatty acid deficient. There are people that don't eat any added fat for reasons that have nothing to do with weight loss. I was just on the wonderful YouTube channel of Nina and Randa Nelson, who are coming out with a book in April. It's called The Clear Skin Diet, how they reverse their horrible acne. They are in their 20s. They are healthy. They're vibrant, and they don't eat any added fat. So that's one thing where I have maybe a different stance on. I'm not a doctor, of course, and I'm not telling you not to eat nuts, but I am telling you that if a food is a problem for you, you may want to have a consultation with somebody like Dr. Alan Goldhammer. It's free, by the way, if you go to healthpromoting.com and discuss what your options are. So that's about that. Now, the other thing about a lot of the other plant-based programs, and they're wonderful, by the way, and I have said this since day one, and I mean it in all sincerity, is that whether it's you're trying to achieve optimum health or overcome food addiction or lose weight, do the least restrictive program you can do. But here's the problem, and Dr. Goldhammer has said this many times, is especially for people that are suffering with food addiction, a more flexible approach rarely works. Now, most of the plant-based programs and recipe books allow sugar, flour, and salt, and many of them allow oil. And again, I promote these people. I interview them. I think they're wonderful, and I don't think everyone needs to do this type of austere, or as Dr. Pam Peake said, draconian diet to get results. But I would say is what you have been doing up till now isn't working. Maybe try something else. They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing in the same way and expecting a different result. So let's talk about now what the dietary style is of the Ultimate Weight Loss Program and why and where I learned it. And what's really interesting is I got a couple of books here to help me out, is that if you had been born in another time in human history, the way that I'm proposing you eat to overcome your food addiction or to achieve ultimate weight loss would not be considered extreme, and it would not be considered a diet. It would be called food, because eating an unprocessed diet made from plants is pretty much what our ancestors ate throughout most of human history. Yes, they did include some animal products when they could find them, the sick, the weak, the slow, the isolated, the injured, but they were mostly hunter-gatherers, mostly gatherers. So they didn't add sugar to their food or oil or flour or alcohol or salt, because they don't exist in nature in any concentrated forms. Now, there's a book I love by Dr. Colin Campbell called Whole. And on page 7 of his book, Dr. Campbell says, the ideal human diet looks like this. Consume plant-based foods in forms as close to their natural state as possible, in parentheses, whole foods. Eat a variety of vegetables, fruits, raw nuts and seeds, beans and legumes, and whole grains. Avoid heavily processed foods and animal products. Stay away from added salt, oil, and sugar. Aim to get 80% of your calories from carbohydrates, 10% from fat, and 10% from protein. That's it in 66 words. Well, that is completely consistent with the dietary style I recommend. Now, what about this wonderful book, The Pleasure Trap? If you haven't read it, I really recommend it. It's really probably the best book I've read on food addiction. So what do they say is the proper diet? Here we go. Health is best supported by the removal of all meat, fish, fowl, eggs, dairy products. This is page 62, by the way, and added oil, salt, and sugar, and refined carbohydrates. Also to be avoided are recreational drugs such as alcohol, caffeine, and tobacco. Health is most effectively promoted by healthful living, consuming a diet of whole natural foods, exercising, getting appropriate rest, and avoiding toxic substances. Such a lifestyle not only prevents disease, but in many cases is able to reverse disease and help restore health and well-being. So there we have it from 2 of the greatest experts, or 3 actually, 2 people wrote The Pleasure Trap, Lyle and Goldhammer, on what the diet is. And that is the diet that I teach in the Ultimate Weight Loss Program. Now, it's also consistent with another one of my heroes, Dr. John McDougall, but it's consistent with the book, The Maximum Weight Loss. It's his Starch Solution, the regular McDougall program is a little bit more liberal. And as I said before, if you can do the regular McDougall program, or if you can do a more forks over knives engine 2 that have a little bit more leeway with the flour, with the sugar and the salt, and get the results you want, please do them. Why would you do something more difficult if something easier worked? But the problem is if you are suffering from refined food addiction, that amount of flour, sugar, and for some people even salt can be enough for people not to achieve their weight loss goals and reverse their food addiction. So Dr. Goldhammer coined the term SOS-free diet, sugar-free, oil-free, and salt-free. And he calls that also the international symbol of distress. That is what SOS is. And so he's the one that started with the SOS-free diet, which I started following, actually, believe it or not, August 1st, 2008, because I had heard about it from a lecture that Dr. Esselstyn gave. Now, I was still 50 pounds heavier at the time because I was eating nuts. And believe it or not, I was only eating about an ounce a day. That was enough to keep me that fat because, as you learned from my interviews with Dr. Alvera, people vary in the amount of fat. This is a genetic thing. I believe it's the APOE gene, but people vary in how much fat they can be and be fat or be lean. Like that old nursery rhyme, Jack Sprat can eat no fat, his wife could eat no lean. A lot of these very thin doctors and dietitians that are eating nuts every day and telling you to eat nuts every day, they can eat 30-40% of their calories from fat and not be overweight. But if you're overweight, it's a good chance it's not you. And that's why I suggest running an experiment. So I started an SOS-free diet August 1st, 2008, but I didn't lose weight until about 5 years ago because I didn't understand calorie density. So the thing about SOS-free, sugar, oil, salt, is that when we started running the Ultimate Weight Loss Program online in 2014, we actually had started doing it in person in our groups in 2012. And so many people were having amazing results, like Shada, who now lost 112 pounds, and they were posting pictures on Facebook. People wanted to come to this program, but they couldn't come to Los Angeles. That's why we did the live Ultimate Weight Loss Conference and filmed the DVDs and things like that. We were calling it SOS-free. And unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize that people weren't understanding what I was teaching, and they were still drinking alcohol and they were still having flour. Now, when I discussed this with Dr. Goldhammer, he said, well, it's obvious. They should know that the S in sugar means all refined carbohydrates. It includes flour and alcohol. But not everybody understood that. And so what I did is I changed the acronyms of SOS, sugar, oil, salt, to SOFAs, sugar, oil, flour, alcohol, and salt, so that people would understand that it's also flour-free and alcohol-free, both refined carbohydrates. You see, sugar and flour go through the exact same refining process in their manufacture as drugs and alcohol. And that is what happens to change these whole plant foods into chemicals that makes them, for people that are sensitive to food addiction, makes them addictive. So nobody has a problem eating whole barley, but people do have a problem drinking alcohol from which the barley is made. Most people don't have a problem eating whole grains like, brown rice. I mean, some might, but they definitely can have a problem when you mill it into a brown rice flour. And the same thing is with sugar. Most people don't have a problem with beets, but you process it into sugar. When you process a food, you make it calorie rich and nutrient poor. So while beets might be 195 calories a pound and have water and fiber and vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals and antioxidants and micronutrients, you turn it into sugar and you've gotten rid of all of these vital compounds. And probably the two most important compounds in food, at least in terms of satiety, which are the fiber and the water. And then you have the non-nutritive product. It's the same thing when you take 16 ears of corn and turn it into 1 tablespoon of corn oil. It also takes up more space in your stomach when you eat it in the whole food form. I've used this example before. Our stomach is about the size of a cantaloupe, holds about 1 liter of food. You could easily fill your stomach with 500 calories of brown rice. You would be full because you'd activate your stretch, nutrient, and calorie receptors. You mill that brown rice into brown rice flour to make a gluten-free pastry or bread. You now need 1,500 calories to fill the same space in the tank. So even if you don't believe in food addiction, you can't not believe in calorie density, because that's like saying I don't believe in gravity. And if you want to lose weight, especially while eating larger volumes of food, then this is something you might want to learn, if not from me, from somebody else like Dr. Barbara Rolls, who wrote Volumetrics. I think that's probably the best explanation of calorie density I've seen. Dr. McDougall's book, The McDougall Program for Maximum Weight Loss, is based on calorie density, as Dr. Jean Ornish's Eat More, Weigh Less, and Pritikin's Calorie Density Principle, all great books. But I think it was Dr. Rolls' book that really helped me understand this, because she used lots of pictures, and it helped me see that for the same amount of calories in 2 tablespoons raisins, I could have a cup of grapes. And so that's what I based my PowerPoint on, which is it's the first module you get if you join the Ultimate Weight Loss Program. One of the things I forgot to say was that when I tried to get treatment in the non-vegan world for food addiction, first of all, I was told that you can't reverse it with a plant-based diet. They said that for some reason they believe that animal protein is superior and that you must have that. And we know it's not true, because I reversed it, and now thousands of people have, with a very high carb plant-based diet, but the right kind of the plant-based diet, unrefined, without the sugar, oil, flour, alcohol, and salt. The other problem I had with the non-vegan food addiction programs is they were all strict weighing and measuring programs. Now, those work. And by the way, all diets work. And I find it curious when people say that their diet failed them. The diet didn't fail you. The diet was unsustainable. The diet worked. But where you failed, if you want to use that word fail, was in maintenance, because you couldn't continue to do what you did. I probably get more people that have gained more weight on doing a weighing and measuring program from the rebound effect, because they white knuckle it, they use willpower to eat so much. Not only are they eating less food than their body needs and desires, but almost all of the non-vegan weighing and measuring programs completely restrict complex carbohydrates. Some of them allow no carbohydrates, other than sometimes they allow legumes, but they certainly don't allow potatoes, sweet potatoes, winter squashes, whole grains, and beans. Some of them limit it to 4 ounces a day. If you're a goal weight, I eat probably 4 pounds of complex carbohydrates a day. And if you followed anything Dr. McDougall's done, you know that complex carbohydrates are to the hunger drive what oxygen is to the breathing drive. You'll pretty much, without oxygen, you'll suffocate. Without carbohydrates, you will be hungry, and then you eventually will eat more. And that's why it's so hard that the individuals that were, I don't want to say brainwashed, but that believed in these weighing and measuring programs, which worked for them as long as they kept weighing and measuring, taking their food scale to restaurants and doing that. But it's very, very difficult to live a life that way, because if you understand calorie density, then you don't have to weigh and measure your food or yourself. You can eat not only large volumes of food, but larger volumes of food than you're accustomed to. And if you want more understanding on that, please see episode 36 of Weight Loss Wednesday, where I show you that I eat between 8 and 10 pounds of food a day. I actually eat more as a slender person than I ever did as an overweight or obese person, but I eat differently. And so Ultimate Weight Loss, the diet style, is SOFAs free: sugar, oil, flour, alcohol, and salt. Now, I'm going to probably, if there's time, but not unfortunately, but for me, but maybe for you, is I actually have to end this right at 5, because I'm interviewing somebody for another project, and that was the time she was available. But I'm going to talk about salt maybe a little bit separately, but first I want to talk about them all together. Salt's a little bit different because salt doesn't have calories, but sugar, oil, flour, and alcohol definitely do. And remember, they're all processed foods. They don't exist in nature in any concentrated form. Our ancestors did not evolve on them, and you don't find them in nature. They're very highly processed and refined. Most people cannot make any of them in their own kitchen. But the problem with sugar, oil, flour, alcohol, and salt is they're not really foods. They're really chemicals that we add to the food that fool our brain satiety mechanisms that cause us to exponentially overeat. And this is where all the cravings are. They perpetuate the cravings. They make us eat more. So I would say that they're more, especially for sensitive people that suffer from food addiction, they are more drug-like than food-like. Now, are there people that can drink alcohol, either a lot or a little, and not become alcoholic? Absolutely. But if you're an alcoholic, it's probably not you. Are there people that can eat rich desserts made of dates and nuts and not be overweight, or people that can eat sugar and flour and salt and not be overweight? Absolutely. But if you're overweight or if you're struggling with cravings, it's probably not you, which is why we recommend, if you do join the Ultimate Weight Loss Program, we give you a 21-day meal guide. The recipes are delicious. They're all SOFAs free, is that you just try it for 21 days and see how you feel. If you don't like it, you can always go back. Now, let me just look at my notes. So, all right. So, I get asked this a lot, like, is this sugar okay? Is this sugar okay? Well, what about coconut sugar? And what about stevia? And I've answered this in previous episodes, but I'm going to try to get as much information in this episode as possible. Sugar is sugar, oil is oil, flour is flour, alcohol is alcohol, and salt is salt. And like Dr. Goldhammer says, it's just because something is less bad doesn't mean it's good. So we could argue that coconut sugar is better than white sugar, which oftentimes isn't even vegan. But the reality is it's still sugar. And if you're vulnerable to food addiction, and remember, but it's a terrible word for a disease, which is why if you saw my interview with Dr. Darman, we're thinking of renaming it triple D, dopamine deficiency disorder. It exists on a continuum with people being more or less vulnerable to this. And also during your life, you could be more or less vulnerable. So for example, if you just did a 2-week meditation Vipassana retreat, you might be less sensitive or vulnerable to having some of the SOFAs in your food than if you just crashed your car and your dog died and your mom's in the hospital, so to speak. So it's on a continuum, but it also, depending on what's going on in your life, that, that can change. But the thing is one of the things that all the food addiction programs have in common, at least the ones I've investigated, is that they all are abstinence-based, at least on sugar. Now, some of them are not abstinence-based on flour, but what we're finding is, through works of people like Dr. Joe Niflin, who wrote Sugar and Flour, How They Make Us Crazy, Sick, and Fat, is that if you are sensitive to this, if that you have this biogenetic disease, you are just as sensitive as flour to sugar. And that for many people, flour is a gateway drug to sugar. Most people aren't just eating white flour. They're eating breads or pastries where flour and sugar and often oil and salt are combined. And so while it's pretty easy to explain to people that sugar is more addictive than cocaine and heroin, and many people understand this, whether they eat sugar or not, and they don't think of it as a health food. Where it comes to flour and pasta, it's very hard. And this is where, I've had to, I don't want to say separate myself from my plant-based colleagues, but many of their programs are deeply entrenched in the use of flour, pasta, and that's fine if you're not overweight or struggling with food addiction. But if you are, just based on calorie density alone, again, flour is about 1,500 calories a pound. It's going to be hard to lose weight eating it. And if you are sensitive or suffering from food addiction, even though you could pretty much reverse your heart disease and diabetes eating bread and flour products, it's probably going to be very difficult to get a very slender figure. I know Dr. Lyle talks a lot about the pleasure trap and the ego trap, and how when people, and by the way, people grossly underestimate the power of the pleasure trap. That is just enough to derail most people, because if this were easy, most people would have done it already. And I certainly would have done it before I was 52 years old. But a lot of people, what happens is they feel if the diet's too extreme, they won't even try. And so they get caught in what's called the ego trap. I've done many interviews with Dr. Lyle that explains this in detail. And the diet to get out of the ego trap is going to be less strict than the one that I recommend in Ultimate Weight Loss, or that Dr. Goldhammer recommends. But the problem is anytime you're including the SOFAs in any measurable amount for somebody that is sensitive to them, it makes it really hard to get out of the pleasure trap. And that's why this is like a dance, and it's very, very hard to get out of actually both of these traps. So the thing is if you're not sensitive to it, you might be able to have a product where sugar is the fifth ingredient or a little bit of sugar in the sauce or salt. But if you are sensitive to these things, and again, we vary in how vulnerable we are, you may not get the results you want. Now, here's the thing. Dr. Lyle says a B is good enough. And for most people, especially if they're eating an F diet and they have a lifestyle disease to reverse, a B may be good enough. But I'm going to tell you, because I've worked, most of my clients are women, a B diet that contains any of the SOFAs is often not good enough for a woman to be as slender as she would like. And that it doesn't mean you have to be a size 0. But most women are walking around carrying an extra 30 to 100 pounds of extra weight. And it's until you do the most health promoting version of the diet, which is also probably the most difficult, you may not get the weight off to the degree that you want to. But the people that do it, they are able to get the weight to where they want it. But again, that's why I say do an experiment for 21 days. The problem is the neuroadaptation, and that can take longer than 21 days. Because for whole natural food to taste good without sugar, oil, flour, alcohol, or salt, it takes some time. It can take at least 30 days to even 90 days, especially if you're on a lower fat version of the diet for the food to taste good. And most people will not give it that amount of time. They give into the cravings, which actually will go away if you don't give into them. What makes this process of neurological adaptation go faster is if you're willing to go to True North and do a medically supervised therapeutic water only fast. So I hope I've explained how Ultimate Weight Loss Program is different in terms of that it's an abstinence-based program free of the SOFAs. It's the exact same diet that is taught at True North that Dr. Goldhammer has served there for over 30 years. It's completely consistent with the McDougall program for maximum weight loss. He clearly says in his book right here, I hope I get to the right page, he actually says, where is it? He says eliminate all flour products, so he understands that, at least in terms of caloric density. He does say use sugar and salt sparingly. Now, again, if you're not sensitive to these items, if they're not going to cause you to overeat, I completely support the way that Dr. McDougall says to use sugar and salt, which is sprinkling it on the surface of the food where the taste buds at the tip of the tongue can taste it. And I tell people, get the most expensive salt you can so that you'll use it very judiciously. The problem is if you are a food addict, a little bit is too much because it's going to make you want more. I once accidentally had sugar in a plant-based milk that I didn't know was not unsweetened. And I couldn't believe how just it caused me to have cravings for like a day afterwards. And this was just an innocent mistake. My husband bought the wrong one and I didn't even have that much of it. So the way you'll know how sensitive you are is by your ability to be able to go without it, number one, and when you try to reintroduce it. So again, I'm not trying to make anything more difficult than it needs to be. But the problem is so many people, when they've tried certain versions of a plant-based diet or even the weighing and measuring version of a non-plant-based diet, they fall through the cracks and it doesn't work for them. So what I've attempted to do with Ultimate Weight Loss is have a net to catch the people for who other programs didn't work. I always say Ultimate Weight Loss, it's the last stop on the train, because if you could have done a more lenient and less restrictive program, you probably would have. Most people that come to us are, women in their 40s to 70s. I mean, we do have some young people. The thing that's neat though, is that, as I mentioned with Sharon McRae and Leslie Stein, we've got people that eat this way just because it makes sense. Dr. Goldhammer raised his children eating the same diet I recommend for weight loss and to counteract food addiction and help manage it. That's just because it's the healthiest way to eat. So you don't have to be overweight. You don't have to be food addicted to join Ultimate Weight Loss. If you're looking for a tribe, it's a wonderful way to eat. It's basically just a more tightened up version of what I tried to articulate in Unprocessed 7 years ago. And now Dr. Furman has beautifully articulated everything I was trying to teach in Unprocessed with his new book, Fast Food Genocide. So let's see what else I can tell you. I was going to do this thing, but I don't have time, about the 12 things that I learned from Dr. Goldhammer, like a takeoff of the 12 days of Christmas. But maybe I can do that if I can do a bonus broadcast from True North. Unfortunately, I'm leaving on Saturday and I'm going to be there 12 days. So I don't think I'll be able to do another Weight Loss Wednesday. But I do want you to know the future of Weight Loss Wednesday is, if you want it to continue, I'll continue it. But I want to be able to make it a little bit more fun for me. And so what I'd like to start doing is, my book will be coming out soon. And I'd like to do a recipe every week a new recipe from my book, because I have a little bit more fun when we're in the kitchen. And that's what I'm planning on doing next year, if that's okay with you. And I'll continue to answer your questions, but I would encourage you to at least watch some of the episodes, like the frequently asked questions, the what I eat in a day, or the vegetable episodes, just because some of the questions we get over and over. And again, I don't mind answering them. But for instance, the question of like, well, what about stevia? What about erythritol? What about xylitol? Remember what I said: sugar, sugar; oil is oil; flour is flour; alcohol is alcohol; salt is salt. Just because it's less bad doesn't mean it's good. The 0-calorie sweeteners are worse for people suffering from food addiction because they don't provide a calorie reward. They are so intensely sweet. They still stimulate the dopamine, they still stimulate the insulin, but you don't get the calorie reward, so they actually make you hungrier. They actually cause you to have more cravings. And that is also an agreement, the people that teach the food addiction programs in the non-vegan, in the weighing and measuring world as well. And let's see what else. So salt is the one thing that, people write me and they say, well, I can't join your program because I can't give up salt. Listen, here's the thing. You can join my program and not give up anything. We have people there that we call lurkers. And, at first it would bother me because we have people in Ultimate Weight Loss Program that are, I'm just going to say it, alcoholics, and people that are still smoking cigarettes. And, we've heard from other plant-based doctors, doesn't even matter what you eat if you're smoking cigarettes. Let's take care of these things first. And so I asked Dr. Lyle about it. I said, should I refund their money? Because clearly they're not doing the program and they have these other, habits, addictions that are much more serious. And he told me that even a person that is currently drinking, an alcoholic that goes to AA meetings, will still have a better chance of getting sober. So we welcome you regardless of what your dietary style is. We have people that are doing the Ultimate Weight Loss Program to the best of their ability, but because they have so much more weight to lose, they're still losing tremendous amounts of weight and reversing their diabetes, and they haven't even gone full on vegan yet or given up all the oil and all the salt. What I do think, though, is if you are struggling with food addiction, I think that most people are. When I interviewed emotional eating expert Dr. Roger Gould, he said, anybody that's more than 10 pounds overweight is a food addict or emotional eater. If you're at least 10 pounds overweight, whether you want to believe it or not, I would say that you would want to have as a non-negotiable at least the sugar, flour, and alcohol if you want this program to be successful. And that would include the diet sodas. It would include any of the artificial sweeteners. Now, as far as oil is concerned, that's the other thing. In the non-plant-based treatment of food addiction, while you're weighing and measuring your food, they're making you have oil and salt. And for the amount of oil that they require you to have every day, I can have 4 pounds of non-starchy vegetables. What's going to fill me up more? I agree we need fat, but I eat purslane every day. I eat so many vegetables that my fatty acid profile is perfect. So the thing is, oil, if you eat out, you're probably going to get it if you eat at other people's house, but oil is more based in caloric density than on the food addiction part. The sugar, the flour, and the alcohol is definitely based in the food addiction part because they're basically just different forms of the same drug. Sugar is powdered alcohol. Bread is solid beer. So we look at those as the same. Salt is where I'm most lenient because I'm not perfectly salt-free. I don't add salt to my food. I haven't in almost 10 years. And I stopped using condiments in June because out of laziness, I was doing mustards and ketchups and salsas that had no sugar, but that did have salt. But I know for me and for some people that are sensitive to food addiction, a little bit of salt, because it's an appetite stimulant, causes us to eat more food than we want. And then after we eat more food that we want with salt, then what are we looking for is sugar. So these are subtle differences. And salt is not the first thing that I would say, oh my God, you have to give it up. But after working with so many people now, I realize for some people that may be the last thing to go. It doesn't have to be the first, but sometimes it really can make a difference. So I'm not trying to make your favorite version of a plant-based diet more difficult. I'm trying to get you the health and the body you deserve. And sometimes if what you're doing isn't working for you, you have to tighten the screws and do a more strict version of what you're doing to get the results you want. And that's why I suggest doing an experiment for 21 days and see how it works for you. So I hope I explained what the Ultimate Weight Loss Program is. You can do the diet without joining the program. You can just watch all my free content. There's probably over 100 hours now. You'll probably be sick of me. We'll be coming back on Wednesday, January 3rd, assuming the plane gets in on time, and we'll be doing a recipe every single week from my new book, which I hope you'll get when it comes out. I promise I'll let you know. I would appreciate if you signed up for my mailing list at eatunprocessed.com, which is the best place to submit questions, because then when we do what's called the launch, there's not going to be pre-sales. We're going to launch the book. If you all buy the same day, which would help me out on Amazon, you not only get the book, but you get the Audible version, which would sell for $25. And you will also get another cookbook that I wrote but never published. So I really want to take this opportunity to thank you so much for watching my broadcast. Please feel free to share now if you would like. I can't send all of you a Christmas card, so I'll just hold it up. If you sign up for my mailing list, I'm wearing the same outfit. Oh, that's embarrassing. You won't get the card, but we'll mail that to you in one of our emails. Thank you so much for watching Weight Loss Wednesday. This was episode 56. This probably should have been episode 1, but hindsight's always 2020. I wish you so much, you and your families, a very healthy, happy, prosperous, compliant, abstinent holiday season and new year. And I really do believe you can have the health and the body you so richly deserve. And if I can do anything to help you get it, please let me know. Bye.